Hello friends and welcome to this video. So thank you for coming here. In this particular video we are going to learn about sockets. Now let me tell you what is socket. So if you go to this learn and documentation, you can actually get a definition of what socket is. So socket is a library that enables real-time bi-directional event-based communication between your browser and the server. So that's amazing. You can transmit data between your server and your browser in real time. So that gives you an enormous opportunity and enormous possibilities of applications which you can build by using this particular technology. So let's get started. The first thing which we'll be doing is creating a folder. I'm creating it in desktop, so let's name it super chat. So it's not that super chat which you do in YouTube. Basically this is the name of our application. You can understand this something like this. The next thing we'll be doing is initializing a node project over here. So we'll say npm init, and then it will ask a lot of questions. So yeah, you can type like -y to omit this question. So basically I'll answer this. Description: this is a chat room application. Okay, at 3 point, I'm happy with that. No git repo, keyword no, author is J. Okay, and let's try yes. So that will basically generate an package.json file. So if you see package.json file into the home of our project. The next thing which we'll be doing is installing some dependencies. So we'll be installing npm install express. The next thing which we'll be installing is socket.io. So we'll say socket.io, okay, and hit enter. So that will basically install express and socket.io in our application. So let's wait until the installation finishes, and then after we'll start coding our application. So as it is installing right now, let me actually go to this documentation, search for something like express, installation with express. So a normal express app is like a little bit different than like what we actually need for socket.io. So for the socket.io, we actually need this app object to be passed inside the server object. Okay, and then we have to create an IO thing with this by giving the server. This options is not important. Okay, so you can give option or omit it, it's up to you. And basically you will see how this works in a while. So basically I think the installation of the dependencies expression socket is complete. We need one more dependency, that is a development dependency, and that is nodemon. What is nodemon, if you're asking? Nodemon is a tool which helps you to like restart your server as soon as there is a change in any file or anything in your particular project. So that's something great. So just installing nodemon. Just wait for like, let's see, this finishes soon, I believe. Yeah, you can see the installation of nodemon has been successfully completed. The next obvious thing we'll be doing is opening Visual Studio Code. That's our editor of choice. You can use any other code editor which you like, any other. That's totally fine. So as you can see, this is our application super chat. So actually there are two folders open. Let me see which one is the other one. So let's close the other one. Okay. Okay, so let's forget about that. So let's create a new file, and that will be an index.js file, index.js file, which will let's actually close. There's actually two applications in my VS Code right now which we don't want. Okay, save every changes. Save. I'm okay. Okay, so the previous application has closed. So the first thing which we'll be doing is basically importing the express library. So we'll say express is equal to require express, and the next thing which we'll be doing is initializing this, and as I've told you, like if you go to the documentation and see, we need a server object, and this is like actually done in like a single line, but actually we require this express thing. That's why we are doing it in two different lines. So yeah, that's something to be noted. So first of all, we have to create a server, and we'll say require http dot create server, and this basically requires your express app. So we can say we can create that over here. So we'll say app is equal to express, and that's our express app. So you can pass this app over here in the server, and the next thing which you have to do is pass this server object to the socket.io library. So we can say io is equal to require socket, socket IO, and you can pass this server object over here. So you can see we have created the our Express app, which we have passed to the server, and then we have created the IO and we have passed this server to the IO. The next thing we'll be doing is actually starting the server. So let's come in here, starting the server. And remember this, you do not have to write app.listen, you have to write server.listen. So that's something important. And let's let's specify our port. So we'll say let the port of our application will be process. If there is like some port already defined by the server, that's okay, we'll be using that. And if not, we'll by default will be connecting to port 8080. Then after this, what we'll be doing is basically writing the port over here and writing the callback function. We'll be logging server started on port, which port it is. By the way, this is string concatenation. So basically you can see, we have, whenever our server starts, we print server started on port, whatever the port is. So let's save this and do some modification in our package.json file. So the thing which we'll be doing here is actually, first of all, we'll just remove this test script and write a dev script over here. And basically with the help of nodemon, we'll be specifying the name of the file, and this will automatically run our index.js, and whenever it detects any changes in the index.js or any related document, any related file, it will automatically restart our server. So that's cool. So let's actually start our server right now. So let's clean up the console. I did that by pressing Ctrl L. Okay, so npm run dev, that will basically start our server. So let's wait, let's hope there's no error. If there is, we'll be fixing it. Okay, there's no error. That's great. So you can see our server started on port 8080 very successfully. The next thing we'll be doing is actually making our front end. So we'll be naming a folder called public, inside which we'll be creating a file called index.js html. Okay, and if you press exclamation mark in VS Code and hit enter, it will generate all the basic markups, and we'll be basically naming here super chat. That's great. The next thing we'll be doing is actually creating first of all, I just want to tell you that we'll not be focusing on UI thing, the CSS part of this particular thing. We'll be focusing on the socket.io, so you can make this application as beautiful as you want with the help of CSS. But right now I'll not be using any kind of CSS in this particular whole tutorial. So how to make this index.js live, or like how we can serve it from our server. So it's pretty easy. So we can simply say let's call it middleware. All the middlewares will be in this particular part. So we'll say app.use express.static, and it will be public. So you have to specify the name of the folder in which your frontend is actually living. So our frontend is living in the public directory, so we have simply mentioned over here public. That's simple, and that will serve it as a static in like home address, it will serve this index HTML. So as we have made the change, you can see our server automatically restarted, and actually we can visit our application simply by opening a new tab on the browser. We have opened 2 of them. So let's specify localhost, and the port at which it has been started is port 8080. You can see super chat. We were successful in getting our front end in our application. So that's great. So the next thing which we'll be doing is actually coming over here, and the next thing we'll be doing is actually writing whenever someone wants to connect to our server. What do you want to do? So there are basically 2 functions, 2 very important functions in learning sockets. First is emit, and the second one is on. So on is like something like an event listener. So you can say like whenever something happens, do this. That's all what on is happening. So we'll say socket.on, like, okay, it's okay. So whenever someone wants to make a connection, connection, it will give us a socket of that particular connection. And like you can think of it as the user. The socket is actually a user, and every socket has an ID. So every user which tried to connect to our application through the socket has an ID, and they are unique for each user. So when and let's create an an array, and let's call it sockets. So basically this will contain all our sockets. Okay, whoever tries to connect to our application. So we'll say sockets dot push the current socket, which okay, the current socket with which the user has connected, and let's log that new user connected. Okay, CUNNECTED connected, and let's give its whatever the ID of that socket is over here. So we'll say socket dot id over here. And as you can see, whenever someone wants to make connection with our server, this particular thing will be called, and this is the socket, which is the, you can think of it as like this is the information about the user which is trying to connect. So we saved this in this array, and we simply logged that new user has been connected to our application. So let's we have made this, but there's no way our front end is actually connecting to our backend. So for that, let's create a script folder, like a JavaScript folder for our front end, and we'll be connecting this to our front end by using the script tag. I don't know, my typing is going on very bad. Script spelling is wrong, man. Oh, let's fix it. So let's name it script. Okay, and let's go and see script. Save it. Yeah, so inside the script folder you get an IO object, and you can think of it as the socket between with which you made connection with the server. So we can say new IO, not this. Basically we need an IO. Okay, and this requires an address to which you want to connect. Okay, so we'll say http double dot slash slash I call it double dot, that's actually colon. So yeah, that's something. Localhost at port 8080. Sorry, what am I doing? I don't know. At port 8080. Okay, so we are connecting to the server at this particular port, and this IO object. And if you're thinking from where will this IO object come, actually we will be using, if you go to the server thing, and if you go to this client, there's something called installation. So if you go there, you actually need this CDN. You can import socket.io in your application through this CDN. If you're using some front-end framework such as React, Vue, or anything like that, you can actually use this npm package also. It is known as npm install socket.io client. As we are not using any front-end framework, so we'll directly be using the CDN. So let's specify it above where you have imported the script. So that's quite important. So as you can see, now we have successfully mentioned the socket.io library in our front end. So we from there only we have this IO object, if you're thinking of it. So now actually whenever we run our project, it will try to make a connection. So let me actually demonstrate that to you. You can see this is our server, this is the last front, and let's try to refresh our front end. So you can see new user connected, and this is the connection ID. So that it's that simple to make connection between the front end and the back end. So we have made a successful connection between them. So now it's like the question is, how can I transmit data between the front end and the back end? So let's see how you can do it. First of all, what do we want? We want all the users who connect all the users who connect to our server, we want their IDs to be sent to all other users. I think you are understanding what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's forget about it. Let's actually start building an application. We'll be talking about that later on. So first of all, let's specify a div inside which everything will be there. So first of all, we want an input field, and it's pretty dumb application, so just don't laugh at this application, but just it will give you a good understanding of how sockets work. So input text, and this is placeholder is message. Okay, and we have a button at the end which will simply say send. Okay, and basically if you go and refresh to our thing, you'll see it's simple. So it's name, message, and send. So you have to specify your name. So what is your name? Like say Jay, and message, this is cool, and send it. So this will be basically, this will be sent on the chat room. So how will you do it? First of all, let's give everything an ID. So let's specify name over here. The ID of this will be name, ID of this will be message, and ID of this will be send button. Okay, and let's go to our script file and start like referencing to all these things. So we'll say let name be is equal to document dot get element by ID name. The next thing which we want is email, not email, man, message. Message is document dot get element by ID message. The next thing is send button. Okay, so we'll say document dot get element by ID send button. So basically when we have all these three things, the next obvious thing is to do is simply say send button dot on click. We want to get the value from all these things. So name, let's say name text is equal to name dot value. Okay, the next thing is message is equal to name dot message dot value. The next thing which we want is actually send button. Why am I writing send button? Okay, so we have the name and the message. So first thing we'll be doing is checking that they are empty. If they are empty, like we'll be simply saying like don't send an empty message to the user. So if the name is equal to like the empty thing, or if the message is like, okay, we have to write message text because that will conflict this particular variable over here. So we'll say message what am I doing? Message text is equals to this. If that is true, simply alert please mention a name and a message. Okay, that will basically tell the user that please mention a name and a user. The next thing which we'll be doing is sending these information. So let's say let user be is equals to name will be name text. Okay, and the message will be message text. So that's our user object. Okay, so like that's not the user object, actually that's the whole message. Okay, and we want to send this whole message obj, that is object. So message object. So we'll be sending this particular message object to our server. So how you can do it? So as I've told you, to send any information, whether you want to send it from the server to the front end or from the front end to the back end, you simply have to do one thing, that is emit. Emit is emitting an event. So what we'll do is like we'll simply say io.emit will be showing io.emit, and what do you want is emit what like you have to specify a function name over here. Okay, so you have to specify a function name over here. So what we'll be mentioning is new message. You'll understand what this function name actually means, and when we'll be referencing to this from the server, we'll write dot on and this function name. So the second data is any type of data which you want to send. So we want to send this message obj, that is message object. So whenever the user clicks this send button, these two values are actually sent to the server through this socket. That's great. So how will you receive that object over here? And one more thing, the user also disconnects, but when the user disconnects from the server actually does not deletes it from the socket, and we want it to delete that user if the user had disconnected. So you can do that by simply doing socket dot on disconnect. So whenever the user disconnects, we want to do something. We want to simply, we want to remove that user from the sockets. How will you do it? So as I've told you, you can identify the sockets uniquely by their ID. Okay, so we'll be simply sockets dot filter. So basically filter, and we have to write the sockets because this returns actually. Okay, so sockets dot filter, this will give you the current socket. So let's name it SOC and return, and if soc.id is equal to the socket.id, not sockets.id, socket.id, so that will basically, return, sorry, if it is not equal to, so if like any id which matches the current socket, it will, like, if the disconnect function is called, it will simply remove that from the, whole socket array. That's great. You can see, we have successfully made this disconnect, and let's actually test it also. So this is our application, and here you can see our application has been made, and as soon as we like disconnect from it, this should log, actually this will not log any message, so let's do that also. So let's log over here. Let's say user disconnected, and let's mention the user ID over here, and we have to mention backticks over here. Okay, let's mention the user ID over here. So let's simply say whatever the ID is, so we could say socket.id, and that will basically do its work. So here's our application. Here the server has restarted successfully. So let's actually try to get out of it here. So you can see user disconnected, and this is the ID of the user who has disconnected. That's as simple as like that. And this actually has removed that user from our sockets array. Okay, user connected, this particular user has been connected. So the next thing which we'll be doing is, this is like all the disconnect part. Okay, so if user disconnect part, okay, so this will be called if the user will be disconnected. So as you can see, we have written all the user disconnect part over here. Now here we'll be handling the new message. So how socket will be like socket.on, and here you have to actually mention whatever event you have emitted from your backend. So if I go to my whatever event you have emitted from the front end, so from front end I have emitted this new message event, and this data is what I have sent to the server. So I can simply say io.on new message, and now I think that event type makes sense, right? So you'll receive whatever data which you have sent from the front end over here, and same thing applies from like if you want to send the data from the server to the front end. So same, you have to emit a particular event, and you can receive that in the front end. So let's say whatever the new message the user has actually sent me over here. So we want to actually create an array, so we'll be not using any database or something. So we'll say chats, that will contain an array of all the chats which have been done till now. So we'll say chats dot push new message, not this, new message. So basically not this one, man, come on, just happens. Yeah, dot push. What am I doing? I don't know. Yeah, so basically you can see, we have successfully like, oh wait a minute, come on, stop. Yeah, we have actually saved this particular whatever the new message is in this particular array. The next thing which we want to do is, whenever a particular message is actually sent by any user, we want to send that data to every other user so that they can refresh. So what we can do is, like, we can say sockets. So we can say let's comment here, sending this data to all other users. So what we'll do is, like, we will simply say sockets dot for each socket socket dot emit So message, let's emit message, and let's send this whole chats thing. Okay, so we are actually sending the whole chat every time a new chat has been introduced to all the users who have connected to our database. And actually we have to do it first time also when the user connects, so that, you know, first time the user is not with a blank page. So we just have done this. So now whenever we do this message thing, whenever we send this all the chats, we want simply to receive this in our front end. So how you can do that? That's actually also very simple. Method like the same, you know, I have already told you, on and emit, these are the two essential functions. Other than this, everything is like this, almost the same. So we'll say window dot onload, whenever the window loads, what you want to do is simply, you know, let's go to our front end, and let's say, you know, this will be a div inside which all of our chats will be stored. So let's give it an id, let's call it chats. Okay, and let's reference this over here. So we'll say let chats be is equal to document dot get element by id chats, get element by id chat. So is the id same? Yeah, the id is same. So basically, you know, we have done this chats, and the next thing is whenever the server emit this message event, it will give us some data, and that data will be all chats, all the chats as we have sent it from the backend, if you remember. So this all chats, and we want to simply, you know, go through this all chats dot, like I simply want to like for each, and this will be a single chat, and we'll simply do what, we will simply, we have a chat, right? So the next obvious thing is we'll be creating we will be iterating the chat section, the inner HTML of the chat section. So we'll simply say chats dot inner HTML plus equals this particular thing, and we'll simply say a paragraph tag over here, and that ends also. So basically we have a bold thing, and the next thing we'll be doing is simply chat dot I think, you know, the name it was there, not user. So what we are actually sending, so if you remember, we are sending name, so name, and we'll be giving a column, and then whatever the message is. So we'll simply say chat dot message, and that's it. Okay, and you know, every time this is emitted, we want to clear whatever things is like from before. So we'll say chats dot inner HTML is equal to blank. So save it. Basically that's it. I believe that should work, start working. So if we now go and I write the name J, let's see, do we get any error or not? So this is okay, send it. Something is not okay. Let's see what's the error. So new user connected or something like that, and let's see our console. We have an error. So it says io.on is not a function, io.emit is not a function. So it says it is not a function. I believe there's no new, so let's try it without new. On is not a function, so new, I believe. Okay, why is this thing not working? Okay, let's go to the documentation and see actually. As you can see, this is how you initialize the socket. So I believe simply like this. So we can also do that. So we can go here and simply say this thing. Socket.on is not a function. I believe, you know, what is happening is like this thing is actually called before only. So let's try to fix this. So friends, you can see this silly mistake over here. Actually, we were writing io.on and io.emit, so we don't have this io thing over here. We have socket. Okay, so that's the mistake we were doing. So let's fix that. We don't have any variable called io in our front end basically, so we simply replace that with socket. So I believe that now should start, like, the application should start working now. So my name is Jay and the message is hi. Hi, yeah, that works. And let's try to like make two of them. So localhost port 8080, and let's try to chat between them. So like, yeah, one this side, one on this side, and let's actually try to chat between them. So let's close this. Hi, my name is, let's say, Rohit, the second name, not Rohit, it's Rohit. And we can specify the message as hello. Send. You can see Rohit said hello, and this is great. We learned Socket IO. Yeah, so by this I'm concluding this particular tutorial. I hope so you learned something new. This is how Socket IO, these were the basics of Socket IO. There are lots of more things to explore in Socket IO. I'll be covering them slowly and slowly in this particular channel. I'll be also covering how you can broadcast data, such as like your camera, whenever you feature like a real-time like chat application, how you can make how you can make real-time video chatting application and all. So thank you for watching this video. I hope so you enjoyed this video, and if you don't forget to subscribe the channel and like this video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye, have a great day, and just keep supporting as you are right now. So thank you, bye bye.